At the palace banquet, I voluntarily jumped into the bone-chilling lake to rescue the playful third prince who had fallen into the water. The emperor asked me what reward I desired. I bowed down, my head heavily knocked against the blue bricks. Your Majesty, I beseech you to grant me grace and allow me to peacefully separate from Grand Tutor Xietziqing. As soon as the words were spoken, below the platform, Xietziqing's expression changed. In the palace banquet hall, you could hear a pin drop. The divine authority of the emperor is unfathomable. Lady Jiang, are you truly determined to divorce Lord Xie? Yes, I replied with certainty. Beside me, Xie frowned deeply and scolded me in a low voice. Jiang Mingshuang, do not be presumptuous before His Majesty. I paid him no heed, and continued. Everyone knows my husband and Miss Chen Wanjuan share a deep bond. I cannot bear to tear them apart, so I voluntarily request a divorce. Xietziqing's face turned very unpleasant. All the noble women and ladies in the hall were also shocked by my audacity, yet I seemed not to hear the surrounding gossip, kneeling straight and upright, but my hands were clenched into fists at my sides, nails pierced into flesh and blood, completely unaware of the pain, until I heard the person on the high platform utter the words, I promise you. I let out a long sigh of relief. I am the daughter of a merchant. 10 years ago, Xietziqing was taken hostage by villains. My father risked his life to save him. As he was dying, my father asked Xietziqing to take care of me in return for saving his life. Xietziqing promised to marry me. After marrying him, I found out that Xietziqing already had someone in his heart. The one in his heart is the talented woman of the capital, Chen Wanjuan. The two grew up together and are well matched in talent and virtue. Everyone believes I am not worthy of Xietziqing. I have been married into the Xie family for 10 years. And I have given my all for Xietziqing, yet Xietziqing has always been cold toward me. The servants also look down on me, a mistress from a merchant background, and only pretend to be respectful. Even the son and daughter I risked my life to carry for 10 months and give birth to look down on me. My son, with reddened eyes, pushed me away. I don't want a mother like you. My daughter also cried and yelled at me. If it weren't for you, our mother should have been Aunt Chen. This dynasty has an open and liberal social atmosphere. Chen Wanjuan was completely infatuated with Xietziqing and unwilling to marry anyone else, stubbornly letting herself become an old maid. She was filled with talent and intellect. I was invited by Xietziqing to the mansion to teach his 2 children. I do not wish to, Xietziqing then coldly questioned. You do not wish, with your lack of knowledge, do you think you can teach them well? I tried to argue back, we could have someone else. I couldn't finish my sentence. Xie looked at me with disappointment and began lecturing. You know very well how you married me. I have a clear conscience with Miss Chen. You come from a lowly background and are coarse and vulgar, that's one thing, but to be so jealous on top of it all. How can you be a worthy matriarch of the Xie family? I had no choice but to compromise. But then I saw Xietziqing, who always wore a cold expression in front of me, smile tenderly at Chen Wanjuan. Even our 2 children often showed her warmth and concern. I suddenly realized I was an outsider. I also cried and made a scene. Everyone blamed me for the mistakes, until my birthday came, and not a single person showed up. They all went to visit Chen Wanjuan, who had accidentally sprained her foot. I sat alone at the table, watching the large spread of dishes in front of me slowly grow cold. My heart gradually grew cold along with them. I suddenly feel very tired. Forget it. Since you want to become a family, then I will grant your wish. After leaving the palace, Xie couldn't wait to pull me aside. Jiang Mingshuang, just because I didn't attend your birthday celebration, is this really necessary? Wanjuan is the tutor for Xiana and Lina. Since she was injured, it's only right that we visit her. For such a trivial matter, you went before the emperor to request a divorce. Aren't you just making a spectacle of us both? I look at this man I once deeply loved. A dull ache surges through my heart. When I first met him, my father died tragically while saving him. The house was in complete chaos. He was busy all around, giving his all. I developed admiration in my heart. When I first married him, I also dreamed of a loving couple, treating each other with respect and courtesy. I worked day and night for the Xie family, giving birth to and raising children, and taking care of my mother-in-law who had difficulty walking, but he always remained cold to me. I thought it was just his nature, until I learned of Chen Wanjuan's existence. He would personally carve jade hairpins as birthday gifts for her. He would leave me while I was in labor to go see her after learning she was injured. He would remember that she liked to eat sweet chestnut cakes and enjoyed wearing sky blue dresses. After Chen Wanjuan entered the mansion to teach the two children, Xie Ziqing, concerned about her poor health, asked me to give up the main courtyard for her. I had a big argument with Xie Ziqing. Xie Ziqing's face was filled with overwhelming impatience, and his words were sharp with reprimand. If it weren't for you, the position of the Grand Tutor's wife would have been hers. I was rooted to the spot by those words. An endless surge of grievance welled up in my heart. But I don't know the relationship between him and Chen Wanjuan either. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have stubbornly insisted on marrying him. Now I see such impatience on his face again. He questioned me why I was so determined to divorce. I sneered with a mocking smile. Didn't you say this position should have been hers? Now that I'm voluntarily stepping aside, aren't you happy? Chen Wanjuan declared she would never be a concubine. And you've been entangled with her all these years, just waiting for the imperial decree to come down so you two star-crossed lovers can finally have your wish fulfilled. Why put on this hypocritical act? Xie Qingxi's face turned ashen. I ignored him and quickly stepped into the carriage. Let's head back to the residence. There's no need to wait for him, I said to the coachman. Uncle Dao. Uncle Dao is my own man. He only follows my orders. When I returned to the Grand Tutor's residence, everything was as usual. The events that occurred at the palace banquet had not yet reached here. I first went to the courtyards of my two children. Xie Xian and Xie Lin are a pair of twins. I nearly lost my life due to heavy bleeding when giving birth to them. Both children have been weak since they were young. I ruined my health while taking care of them. My hair fell out in clumps, and I developed chronic headaches when Xie Xian and Xie Lin were children. They were so playful that they startled a horse and nearly got trampled under its hooves. None of the servants reacted in time. I rushed over without a second thought and saved them. They were completely unharmed, but my leg was broken by the horse. I don't know when it started. But the children I held dear in my heart began to see me as their enemy. The master said that among scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants are the lowest. Mother, since you come from a humble background, you shouldn't show yourself in public so freely. Everyone mocks our highly talented father for marrying a merchant's daughter, and we are ridiculed along with him. Once, they were bullied at a banquet, and both of them returned looking disheveled and ashamed. I was just about to take them to reason it out. Xie Xian, however, pushed me away with reddened eyes. It's all because of you. I don't want a mother like you. Xie Lin also yelled at me through tears. If it weren't for you, our mother should have been Aunt Chen. The sharp words stabbed at my heart like knives. Chen Wanjuan quickly pulled both of them into her arms, comforting them gently in a soft voice. She looked up as if she were very concerned about me. Madam, children's words are harmless. Don't take them to heart. I didn't miss the fleeting look of triumph in her eyes. For the first time, I felt a sense of confusion. Is it worth it, for this family? Now I have the answer. But after all, they are my own flesh and blood, so I will give them one last chance, and also give myself one last chance. I met my two children. The two of them were originally playfighting. When they saw me come in, they quieted down. They stood quietly to the side, their faces showing the same indifference as their father's. I simply asked them, Mother is leaving the Grand Tutor's residence. Are you willing to come with me? Upon hearing my words, Xie Xian and the other person furrowed their brows deeply. The two exchanged a glance. Xie Xian spoke impatiently. Mother, if you wish to leave, then leave, but we have our studies to attend to, so we won't be accompanying you. Xie Lin also nodded in agreement. Although I had long anticipated this outcome, their attitude still left me disheartened. They didn't even ask why I was leaving or where I was going, not a shred of concern. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. All right, since you are willing to stay with the Xie family, I won't force you. I have personally sewn 2 sets of clothes for you. I will have someone bring them to you later. You two are growing up now, so take good care of yourselves. Since they didn't care, I didn't offer much explanation. leaving 2 pieces of clothing behind, as if to fulfill this mother-son bond. After leaving the 2 children, I went to Fusho Garden. I specifically brought a lot of people with me. Fusho Garden is the residence of Xiet Xiqing's mother. Xiet Xiqing's father served as a censor. Known for his integrity and honesty in his official duties, unfortunately, he passed away at a young age due to illness, leaving behind Xiet Xiqing's mother and Xiet Xiqing, who was not yet 10 years old. The Xie family lived in poverty. Xiet Xiqing's mother single-handedly raised him, enduring much hardship and toil. When I married into the Xie family, I purchased a new residence and hired servants, but after all those years of hardship, Mother Xie's legs and feet were no longer in good condition. Later, she became unable to walk, spending most of her time burning incense and worshipping Buddha in the longevity courtyard. Although her legs and feet were inconvenient, she was quite skilled at making trouble for others. For example, she would make me kneel on the ground to pick up prayer beans. The blue stone floor was cold and hard, and after picking them up, I could barely stand. Another example is that she would make me copy Buddhist scriptures, and if I didn't finish, I wasn't allowed to eat. If I showed the slightest displeasure, she would sharply rebuke me. "You are a merchant's daughter, originally unworthy of my son. You were not raised with the teachings of a noble lady. I am doing this for your own good, to temper your character." These tasks could naturally be done by servants, but doing them yourself shows sincerity. She is the mother-in-law, and I am the daughter-in-law. In the past, to keep Xie at ease, I had no choice but to endure silently. But now, I don't have so many concerns anymore. I walked into Fusho Garden. Xie's mother was sitting in the courtyard, basking in the sun. When she saw me come in, her expression turned unfriendly. Before I could even speak, she had already said, "I heard that you had a quarrel with Xiqing on your birthday. This matter is your fault. It's just a birthday. How can a wife act so recklessly? Your aura is too full of hostility. Go kneel before the Buddha immediately. Do not get up until I allow you to." Her voice was very loud, but I didn't move, just looked at her. Mother Xie angrily slapped the table. "What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and go." I suddenly laughed, nodded, turned around and instructed the servant behind me to move the golden Buddha from the room. The golden Buddha was nearly half a person's height, made of pure gold. It is a rare treasure. Mother Xie was completely stunned. "What are you doing? This is an unforgivable offense. Someone, stop her quickly. I have more people on my side. No one dares to make a move. I was the one who bought this golden Buddha, and now that I'm leaving, it naturally comes with me. It used to protect the Xie family, but now it only protects me." I then turned my gaze to Mrs. Xie. "Mrs. Xie is right. I do carry a heavy aura of hostility." After saying that, I left without looking back, completely ignoring Mrs. Xie's furious shouts behind me. I finally returned to my own courtyard. In fact, I had already started preparing as soon as I decided to leave. This included my dowry and the arrangements for the house and servants, but there wasn't much to arrange. Most of the things in this mansion were acquired after I married into the family. The greatest advantage of a merchant's daughter is having plenty of money. What I need to consider now is making choices. I walked very quickly. As soon as I entered the courtyard gate, I saw Chen Wanjuan standing in the yard. As if she was specifically waiting for me, I frowned. Before I could speak, I saw her being supported by her maid. Thud. She knelt on the ground. "Madam, on your birthday, I accidentally sprained my foot. Xiqing and the 2 children only came to visit me out of courtesy, not to intentionally neglect your birthday. If you hold any resentment in your heart, please punish me instead." I quietly watched Chen Wanjuan. She is very beautiful, gentle and delicate. She exudes an air of scholarly refinement. Her father was a 6th-rank official, also coming from a humble family background. This dynasty established schools for women. Her father sent her to the women's school, hoping she would get to know the daughters of high-ranking officials. But her family background was not particularly outstanding among the girls' school. She possessed a wealth of talent but never had an opportunity to showcase it, until the girls' school organized a spring outing banquet. Coincidentally, the students from the Imperial College also attended. The two sides competed in literary talent from behind the curtains. Among the scholars, Xiet Siqing stood out as the clear winner, after the noble ladies were defeated one by one. It was the turn of the unremarkable Chen Wanjuan. Originally, no one had placed much expectation on her, no one expected her talent to be on par with Xiet Siqing's. It astonished everyone. This competition earned her the reputation as the top talented woman in the capital. Because of this contest, Xiet Siqing fell in love with her at first sight. The customs of our dynasty are open and liberal. Their affair became a beautiful story for a time, if I hadn't interfered. They might have truly ended up together. In the eyes of others, Chen Wanjuan is noble in character and overflowing with talent, but in my eyes, she is no different from any ordinary woman in the inner chambers. Like now, Chen Wanjuan knelt before me with tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms in the rain, making it seem to anyone who saw that I had bullied her. I sighed. You should get up first. Chen Wanjuan did not move, she just kept kneeling on the ground, shedding tears. If Madam does not forgive me, I will remain kneeling and never get up. I smiled sarcastically. All right, I forgive you. Can you get up now? Chen Wanjuan froze. She seemed not to have expected me to say that, but she still knelt on the ground. Madam, I know you're speaking in anger, but I sincerely came to apologize to you. Whether you want to hit or scold me, I won't fight back. The more she spoke, the more tears streamed down her face. I almost let out a scornful laugh. I knew she was doing it on purpose, so I didn't say anything, just quietly watched her performance. Just as expected, soon, Xiet Siqing's light voice came from outside the door. What are you all doing? Xiet Siqing had returned, because I had taken the carriage back first. He borrowed a colleague's carriage to come home. A lot of time was delayed during this period, so he has only just returned now. He wasn't the only one who came in. The two children also received the news and followed closely behind Xiet Siqing. Even Lady Xie, who rarely leaves the courtyard, was carried by the servants and came to my place. I couldn't help but glance at Chen Wanjuan, making such a grand scene. She really went to great lengths. The audience arrived one after another. Chen Wanjuan's weeping grew even more pitiable. Xiet Siqing glanced at me with a complicated expression. He bent down to help Chen Wanjuan up. What's going on? He asked. Chen Wanjuan leaned against him weakly, wiping her tears, delicate and fragile, pitiful and touching. I heard from Lina that you, madam, are planning to leave the Xie residence. I know you are still upset about what happened on her birthday, so I came specifically to apologize to you. I know you have always misunderstood me, madam. There's no need to leave out of anger. If anyone should go, it should be me. She made a move to turn away. The others grew anxious at the sight. Xiezian quickly stopped her. Aunt Chen, don't go. If she wants to leave, let her leave. What does it have to do with you? A mother like that isn't worth keeping. Xie Lin rushed over and pushed me. She pushed me so hard I staggered. How can you be so vicious? Are you really trying to drive Aunt Chen away? Xie's mother pointed at me from her chair. That troublemaker. I think she's gone completely mad. She actually moved my golden Buddha, watching them point their angry accusations. I felt nothing but sorrow in my heart, but soon, I suppressed all these emotions within me. Anyway, I'm leaving. There's no need to be sad over these people and these matters. I withdrew my hand from the maid supporting me behind, walked up to Chen Wanjuan, calmly asked, Miss Chen, you said you came to my courtyard today specifically to apologize. What are you apologizing for? Everyone was taken aback. They didn't know what I was up to. Chen Wanjuan paused, then said with a sob. Because of Madam's birthday, I accidentally sprained my foot that day. Ci Qing and the two children came to see me out of courtesy, not intentionally neglecting Madam's birthday. I remained calm. If you say it wasn't intentional, then why are you here to apologize? By specifically coming to confess your fault, aren't you admitting that you were in the wrong? Chen Wanjuan's expression stiffened. The others also exchanged glances. Yes, what an obvious truth. If you believe you've done nothing wrong, then why come to confess your guilt? Chen Wanjuan flusteredly tried to make amends. I just heard from Lina that you were leaving the Xie residence, so I assumed you were upset about what happened on your birthday. In my panic, she bit her lip and started crying again. She looked as if she had been wronged. I let out a soft hair, and anyone could hear the mockery in my laughter. Speculation. You've made such a big fuss over a baseless speculation. Bringing people to my courtyard to accuse me. Miss Chen, you're truly impressive. Of course, this impressive was not meant as a compliment. Chen Wanjuan was speechless and silently shed tears. I was truly fed up. Miss Chen, please stop crying. Look, as soon as you cry, my husband, my mother-in-law, and my 2 children all show so much concern for you. If you keep this up, they'll think I'm forcing you or bullying you. Then wouldn't I be suffering undeserved misfortune again? I swept my gaze over the faces of everyone present. They averted their eyes, not daring to meet my gaze. Each person's eyes held a complex expression. This feeling is very strange. It's not like this has never happened before, but no matter how I explain, they just won't listen. Now they're relentlessly mocking and ridiculing. They, on the contrary, became guilty. Chen Wanjuan, seeing the situation slip out of her control, immediately felt a bit flustered. She gritted her teeth and suddenly looked up. I admit I didn't consider this thoroughly, but madam, you shouldn't have falsely claimed you were leaving the Xie family. Isn't that just seeking attention? I let out a scoff and retorted, who said I was lying? Chen Wanjuan was a bit confused. You're actually leaving? Xie's mother and the 2 children didn't believe it either. Mother Xie's face was contorted with rage. Leave? What do you mean leave? You are the daughter-in-law of the Xie family. If you truly wish to leave, I will have Xie Qing divorce you right now. Xie Xian and Xie Lin's faces showed barely concealed impatience. Mother, we did misunderstand you this time. Let's just let this matter pass. And please don't make a scene anymore. What's the fuss? They still think I'm making a fuss. My heart ached, but I couldn't be bothered to explain anymore. Just then, a sharp voice suddenly came from outside the door. The imperial decree has arrived. The imperial decree has finally come. Apart from Xie Ziqing, it seems the others haven't yet grasped the situation. Eunuch Su from His Majesty's side has come personally to announce the decree. The Emperor's grace is vast, allowing me and Xie Ci to part on amicable terms. The moment I received the imperial decree, it felt as if a heavy shackle had been lifted from my heart, although this was a choice I struggled for 10 years to make. Yet when things reached this point, my body and mind felt incredibly light. I once again scanned the faces of everyone present. Mrs. Xie was shocked. The 2 children found it hard to believe. Chen Wanjuan's face showed barely contained excitement. As for Xie Ziqing, I thought he would be very happy to finally be rid of me, but he wasn't. He stared at me blankly, his expression empty. For a moment, no one spoke. It was Lady Xie who broke the silence. She suddenly snapped back to reality and began cursing at me. Fine, I always knew you were a troublemaker. How dare you go before the Emperor to request a divorce? What will people think of our Grand Tutor's household? You've completely disgraced my son. Go ahead, it's just as well that you're leaving. Once you step out of the Grand Tutor's residence, you'll be nothing but an unwanted abandoned wife. This way, you can vacate the position of the Grand Tutor's wife. Xie Qing will marry Wn Jun in a few days. Only Wn Jun is worthy of Xie Qing. She is 100 times better than you, the daughter of a merchant. Amid her scolding, the 2 children also realized that I was leaving, and their eyes slowly reddened. Xie Lin cautiously asked me, Mother, do you really not want us anymore? However, Xie Xian's eyes were filled with resentment. Since you've chosen to leave, don't come back. Father will marry Aunt Chen, and she will become our new mother. So we won't be ridiculed because of you, the daughter of a merchant. After saying this, he pulled Xie Lin and ran to Chen Wanjuan's side. Chen Wanjuan looked at me with an expression as if she were looking at a fool. In her eyes, my decision to request a divorce was a foolish act, preferring to give up the position of the Grand Tutor's wife and become a discarded woman. What she had meticulously planned for years by Xie Ziqing's side but failed to achieve was accomplished because of my momentary foolishness. Xie Ziqing also snapped back to reality. He seemed to have thought of something and let out a soft sigh. This is the path you chose yourself. Now that the matter is settled, if you ever regret it in the future, you may come to the Grand Tutor's residence. I agree to take you as a concubine. I will marry Wanjuan as my wife. And the 2 children will also be under Wanjuan's name. If you have any complaints, blame yourself for making a decision impulsively. He seemed certain that I would regret it, so after a brief moment of confusion, he returned to his usual demeanor. Chen Wanjuan's expression changed when she heard he intended to take me as his concubine, but in an instant, she returned to normal. She put on a gentle and dignified expression. Madam, no, sister, rest assured, I will treat the two children well. As if they were my own. If you return in the future, I will not make things difficult for you. Her demeanor, no matter how you look at it, seems like showing off. I almost laughed out loud. It's no wonder they carry themselves with such high airs. The Grand Tutor's residence is excellent, the mansion is magnificent, with a multitude of servants, and there is never any shortage of food, clothing, or daily necessities. But that was when I was here, now I am leaving. I turned and instructed Dao Bo behind me, go and call the people I arranged to come in and move the dowry. The bearers of the dowry filed in one after another. They had been waiting outside the mansion all along. Dao Bo gave a signal to the sky, and they all came in. They already knew exactly what needed to be moved. Apart from the courtyards of the two children, almost everything in this mansion was being emptied: gold and silver treasures, jade ornaments and jewelry, antiques and silks. The yellow rosewood chairs and tables in the living room, the carved rosewood bed in the bedroom, and even the ancient books and calligraphy collected in the study were not spared. Xie and the others finally panicked when they saw this scene. Despite her difficulty walking, Xie's mother trembled as she stood up. Stop. All of you, stop. These are the Xie family's belongings. Who gave you permission to move them? I sneered coldly. Old Madam Xie, you must be joking. These were clearly purchased with my dowry after I married into the Xie residence. The account books record it clearly. How could they possibly belong to the Xie family? One advantage of being a merchant's daughter is that accounts can never be wrong. Nonsense. These were clearly bought with my son's salary. Don't even think about seizing them. I picked up a scroll that had been moved from the study. This painting by Master Zhong is worth a fortune. Are you sure Xie Ziqing's salary could afford it? If he really bought it himself, then I'll have to report it to the Dali Temple and let them investigate where the money came from. Mother Xie trembled. Everyone knows that Xie Ziqing is not from a prominent noble family. He comes from a humble background, and his current achievements are due to his own talent. The reason the emperor values him is because of his integrity and poverty, with few connections to the court officials. If he is accused of corruption, he is finished. Xie's mother said no more, only weeping and cursing incessantly. Xie Ziqing looked at me with a face full of disappointment. Mingshuang, how could you go this far? I know you're using this method to force me to keep you, but you've gone way overboard. Chen Wanjuan immediately followed up, saying, yes, Sister Mingshuang, for Ci Qing, money is merely an external possession. Only you would place such importance on it. Ci Qing is a scholar. Noble and proud, your actions will only earn his disdain. Moreover, you should also consider the two children. Having a mother who is so materialistic and empties the Grand Tutor's residence after a divorce won't reflect well on their reputation. I rolled my eyes, speechless. You want me to leave the money behind, yet you speak of it as if it's worthless. Worthless, is it? I walked up to Chen Wanjuan. I pulled out a high-quality Hetian jade hairpin from her hair. This hairpin is from my dowry. When she first arrived at the Xie residence, she was dressed plainly and wore no jewelry. Meeting me, she smiled gently and said, Sister, your pearl ornaments are so exquisite. Unlike me, my father holds a low-ranking official position, and our family is not prominent. I have never worn such fine things. I didn't realize it at the time, I just thought it was casual politeness. But the next day, this hairpin that should have been in my dressing case appeared in her hair. Besides this hairpin, other pieces of jewelry were also missing. Chen Wanjuan's eyes were smiling. Shi Ziqing saw that I was dressed plainly, so he gave me these accessories in your name. I was so angry that my whole body trembled, and I went to confront Xie Ziqing. Xie Ziqing impatiently rubbed his forehead. She dresses too plainly. I'm only afraid others will say the Grand Tutor's mansion mistreats her. I have no other thoughts. Jiang Mingshuang, these are merely worldly possessions. You should be more generous. I could barely hold back my tears. All these pieces of jewelry were specially made for me by my father. The materials used are of the finest quality, one of a kind in the world. Yet, it was casually given away by Xietziqing that day. I chose to endure it for the sake of Xietziqing's reputation. Now, without mercy, I pull the hairpin from Chen Wanjuan's head. Chen Wanjuan's hair tumbles down, and she lets out a scream, looking somewhat disheveled. Since you believe these are all external possessions, you can return them to me now. Don't forget the items in Miss Chen's room. I turned my head and said to Uncle Dao. Chen Wanjuan's room contained more than just the jewelry she took from me. There was also a Huanghuali wood table, bedding, and antiques. Over the years in the Grand Tutor's residence, Xietziqing had often used my name to send her many good things. Chen Wanjuan, upon hearing this, ignored her current disheveled state and widened her almond-shaped eyes in anger. Jiang Mingshuang, don't go too far, Xiexi, Qinghe, and the two children also glared at me angrily. At first, there was still sorrow and regret in their eyes, but now there was only anger. Don't you ever come back, Xiezian shouted at me. I just gave him a cold glance. Don't worry, even if you beg me to come back, I won't. I have too many things. It took the whole day to finish moving. During that time, Xie's mother fainted from scolding, and Xiexi and a few others hurried to find a doctor to take care of her. I, on the other hand, moved a chair and sat in the middle of the courtyard. While checking the accounts, I had some tea and snacks. By the time the final count was completed, I took out a box and handed it to Xietziqing, who had rushed over in a hurry. These are the title deed for this estate and the servants' contracts of indenture. I'm leaving these for the two children. Please keep them safe for now, and you can decide together how to handle them. Xietziqing watched my decisive actions with a complex expression, his voice somewhat strained as he spoke. Are you really giving up on them? Yes, from the moment they recognized someone else as their mother, I gave up on them, I said calmly, then turned and walked away. Then I heard Xietziqing say from behind me, what about me? Are you abandoning me too? I pretended not to hear. My footsteps didn't pause for a moment. With my financial resources, buying a new house wouldn't be difficult. I deliberately chose a place far from the Grand Tutor's residence. The Grand Tutor's residence is in the eastern part of the city, so I chose the western part. Subconsciously, I cut off all ties with them. I didn't tell anyone the address of the new house. When I returned, I found that there was a guest, third prince. I was surprised and quickly wanted to bow. But the third prince came running over with his short little legs. Pitter-patter. There's no need to be nervous. I just wanted to come see you. Of course, the third prince did not come alone. Accompanying him was Eunuch Su from His Majesty's side. Eunuch Su explained with a smile. Since the third prince fell into the water and got frightened, he has been thinking of you, madam. As soon as he recovered, he couldn't wait to come over. Even the emperor couldn't stop him. I quickly waved my hand and ordered the servants to entertain him properly. The third prince is the emperor's legitimate son and also his most beloved child. He is now 8 years old. When he was 5 years old, the empress passed away from illness. The emperor did not entrust him to the care of other consorts but instead took personal charge of him. His importance was self-evident. Discovering him drowning during the palace banquet was an accident. At that time, I only wanted to find an opportunity to catch the emperor's eye and seize the chance to request a divorce from Xietziqing. If there's no chance at this palace banquet, then we'll find the next opportunity. Who would have thought that by chance I would save the third prince? The third prince doesn't often have opportunities to leave the palace. I thought about it and sent someone to bring some folk toys for him to play with. After all, they are just children. Before long, they were playing non-stop. As I was leaving, he affectionately held my hand and told me to come back another day. I smiled and agreed. I would be more than happy to receive special attention from a prince. I gave some snacks to Eunuch Su to take with him. While handing the food box to Eunuch Su, I discreetly slipped a large red envelope into his hand. Time passed quickly. Before I knew it, half a year had passed. During these past 6 months, I've been both busy and not so busy. I've been managing the business left behind by my late father. Now that the business is gradually expanding, there are many things I need to oversee. Still, this is better than when I was at the Grand Tutor's residence. At the Grand Tutor's residence, I had to manage both the household affairs and the business, and I often felt stretched too thin. I occasionally hear news from the Grand Tutor's residence. Xied Siqing indeed married Chen Wanjuan. This caused quite a stir at the time. They are now riding high on success, but that's only on the surface. I heard from the shop assistants that the Grand Tutor's residence is currently looking for ways to sell off their servants. This is normal, only the mistress of the house knows how much silver is spent on so many people each year. Maintaining such a large estate requires a significant amount of manpower and financial resources. Xied Siqing's salary alone is far from enough. When I left, I only left behind the mansion and the servants. It was precisely to let them know how much I had sacrificed, so they wouldn't take all of that for granted. However, although I set a trap for them, yet it also left them a glimmer of hope. Selling the servants and the estate could also fetch a considerable amount of silver. With that silver, they could buy a smaller house, and combined with Xied Siqing's salary, they could still live a peaceful life. But it all depends on whether they are willing to accept it. After all, having once indulged in luxury, how could one return to a life of simplicity? Besides, the third prince indeed kept his promise and often came to visit. I gradually became more familiar with him. His attitude towards me grew increasingly affectionate. Once when he was tired from playing, I coaxed him to sleep. His little head nestled into my arms. He whispered softly, "Aunt Jiang, you're a lot like my mother, you even smell like her." My heart melted completely. Seeing him reminded me of my own two children. I smiled somewhat self-mockingly. I never expected to feel the kind of filial affection I hadn't experienced with my own children, yet I felt it with him. Thinking this way, I treated the third prince even better. Soon, the Lantern Festival arrived. The third prince sent someone to say that he would come over after the palace banquet. He wanted me to accompany him to the Lantern Fair. I didn't think much of it. I had people prepare many dishes and waited for him. I also bought him many toys that children play with. Fearing he might catch a cold, I even personally sewed a little cloak for him. Moreover, the hand warmer had long been prepared. Before long, the gatekeeper announced that the third prince had arrived. I stood up to greet him. However, upon seeing the person who entered, I nearly dropped the hand warmer I was holding. "Your Majesty," I quickly bowed in greeting. The third prince hurried over and helped me up. He said to me with a smile, "Aunt Jiang, Father said there's nothing scheduled today, so he'll accompany us to see the lanterns." I was quite surprised at first, but I've collected myself now. Usually when I conduct business and interact with people, I don't feel overly restrained. Now I'm also carrying myself with grace and ease. The emperor is very lenient, seeing the things I had prepared for the third prince. He nodded gently. "No wonder Lina likes you. You are indeed thoughtful." I smiled politely. The emperor then asked again, "Would you be willing to be Lina's godmother?" I was startled, realizing this was an extraordinary opportunity. But on the surface, she still hesitated and said, "Thank you for your Majesty's great favor, but I am merely a merchant, of humble origins, and I fear I am not worthy of the third prince." The emperor chuckled lightly. "What's so difficult about that? I will issue an edict upon my return, bestowing upon you the title of Lady of Yong, with the rank of a first-grade noble consort." I suppressed my excitement and accepted the decree with gratitude. The third prince came bouncing over. "Great, from now on, I'll have a mother." I smiled and patted his head. The Lantern Festival is crowded. With the emperor and the third prince present, it's naturally inconvenient to squeeze into the crowd. I suggested going to Wangyi Tower. Wangyi Tower is a restaurant owned by my Jiang family. Right across from the Lantern Festival Street, there is an excellent viewing room. I specifically reserved this room and do not entertain other guests here. In previous years during the Lantern Festival, when the two children and Xied Siqing didn't want to squeeze through the crowds, they would always come here. All of this is for the safety of the third prince and the emperor. The emperor was very satisfied with this arrangement. After they were seated, I first went downstairs to arrange for the staff to prepare some special dishes, and I instructed them that I was entertaining distinguished guests, and no one was allowed to disturb us. The staff acknowledged the order. I had just sat down not long ago. Suddenly, a clamor of voices came from outside the door. Xiesi eyes clear, cold voice carried a hint of suppressed anger. "Let Jiang Mingshuang come out, I'll speak to her personally." The third prince and the emperor were both drawn by this shout. I asked the emperor to remain calm and went out to handle the matter myself. Pushing open the door and looking down the stairs, I saw Xiet Siqing. Besides him, there were also 2 children and Chen Wanjuan. The few of them were being stopped by the shop assistant, not allowed to come forward. What's going on? I asked. The expression on the shop assistant's face was indescribable. Boss. Grand Tutor Xie wants to bring his family to the upstairs room to enjoy the lanterns. I've already told him that you are entertaining distinguished guests, but Grand Tutor Xie still insists on speaking with you. I looked at Xiet Siqing and sneered coldly. Lord Xie, you certainly have quite the airs about you. My staff clearly told you we are not receiving guests, and yet you still try to force your way in. When Xiet Siqing saw me, he suppressed his anger and softened his expression. Jiang Mingshuang, I didn't want to trouble you either, but Wanjuan is pregnant. We wanted to see the Lantern Festival, but the crowd is too dense. We only wish to borrow your room for a while. Please, for the sake of our past friendship, do us this favor. I rolled my eyes. What does Lord Xie mean by that? Is the child in Chen Wanjuan's belly mine? Why should I make things convenient for her? You, Xiet Siqing wanted to get angry, but realizing he was asking for a favor, he forcibly held back. Even if you don't do it for my sake, do it for the sake of our 2 children. After all, we were once husband and wife. Don't be so heartless. Only after he said this did I look at Xie Xian and Xie Lin standing behind them. Both children seemed much more reserved and had lost a lot of weight. And whether it was my imagination or not, the way they looked at me no longer held the previous resentment, but instead carried a bit of grievance and caution. My heart ached. Yet I still turned my head away coldly. For the sake of our past as husband and wife, I advise you to leave now. I am entertaining an important guest and have no time to deal with you. At that moment, Chen Wanjuan suddenly let out a scornful laugh. She caressed her slightly bulging belly and said, "Noble guests. What kind of noble guests could a merchant's daughter like you possibly come into contact with? At most, they're just merchants wealthier than you." She turned and coquettishly pleaded with Xiet Siqing. "Siqing, why don't you just have Jiang Mingshuang ask her guests to leave and vacate the room? They're merely merchants, they wouldn't dare refuse a request from someone of your esteemed status as the Grand Tutor." Xie Xi's face showed a hint of hesitation. At that moment, the door upstairs suddenly opened. A tightly wrapped bundle came down from upstairs. He gently threw himself into my arms and looked up to ask me, "Mother. Father is asking why you haven't returned yet. He's hungry and wants to wait for you to eat together." I tightly held onto the third prince to prevent him from falling. Gently nodding, I said to him, "All right, I'll go back right now." I turned to leave, but Xiet Siqing wouldn't have it. He suddenly grabbed my arm, staring intently at me with a frighteningly bright gaze, and asked through gritted teeth, "Who is he? Why does he call you mother? Have you married someone else?" I was stunned. He looked down at the third prince. Xiet Siqing, as the Grand Tutor, certainly recognized the third prince. However, today the third prince was wearing a large hat that covered half of his face, and he had thrown himself into my arms, so Xiet Siqing didn't recognize him. But with so many people around and so many eyes watching, I didn't have the mind to introduce him. Struggling to shake off his hand, "My affairs are none of your business," Xiet Siqing said angrily. "How can it be none of my business? You are the mother of Lina and Xiana. How can you acknowledge someone else's son?" Xie Xian and Xie Lin were almost in tears, but they still bit their lips tightly. Xie Lin couldn't help but rush over and push the third prince in my arms. "Who are you? Who told you to call out like that? This is my mother. Don't you have your own?" "Xie Lin, that's enough," I coldly scolded her. Xie Lin instantly seemed to lose her soul, as large teardrops slid from her eyes. The third prince was initially startled, but he still held me tightly without letting go. He curled his lips at Xie Lin. "Clearly, it was you who abandoned mother. So why are you crying now?" Upon hearing these words, Xie Lin immediately burst into even more intense sobs. However, Xiet Siqing had no mind to comfort his daughter at that moment. He was still preoccupied with another matter. "Are you really remarried? Who is upstairs? Is it the person you remarried?" "No," I quickly denied it. "That's not something to be said lightly." Xie Xi did not believe her. Don't try to deceive me. Just now, this child still called him father. Step aside. I want to see what kind of person you remarried after shamelessly seeking a divorce. You are not allowed to go. I stopped him. At the same time, I signaled my companions to hold him back. But Xiet Siqing seemed to have become paranoid. Casting aside all scholarly dignity, he clamored and tried to charge forward. Amid the noise and clamor, the sound of a door opening came from upstairs. Someone walked out. The moment they saw that person clearly, Xiet Siqing suddenly fell silent. The emperor did not want the matter to escalate, so, at the moment Xiet Siqing was about to kneel, the hidden guards below supported him. The emperor did not even glance at him before turning around and entering the room again. I also followed in, holding the third prince. The emperor acted as if nothing had happened. After the meal, I enjoyed the lanterns with the third prince for a while before leaving. He asked me if I wanted to plead for Xiet Siqing. I thought for a moment and shook my head. One must always take responsibility for their actions, whether in success or failure. It's all cause and effect. The next day, I heard that Xiet Siqing was reprimanded by the emperor in the imperial court. He was accused of being arrogant and conceited, and was stripped of his position as grand tutor. The emperor, recognizing his talent, assigned him to the Chongwen Institute to compile books. Although the position of grand tutor was largely ceremonial, it held a very high status among the officials. Now that he had been dismissed and incurred the emperor's displeasure, Xiet Siqing's status plummeted dramatically. At the same time, I received an imperial decree appointing me as the Lady of Yong. Everyone came to offer their congratulations. Xiet Siqing also came. However, he only stood at the door for a while and did not enter. It wasn't long before I received the news that Xiet Siqing was selling his mansion. Just as I had previously anticipated, he indeed sold off his servants and mansion, exchanging them for a smaller house. The location of the house was not good either, and it wasn't soundproof. I heard that arguments often came from inside. Chen Wanjuan and Xiet Siqing despised each other. Chen Wanjuan said she had a hard life, with a useless husband, a mother-in-law who had difficulty walking, and she also had to take care of her two stepchildren. Xiet Siqing, however, regretted not seeing clearly and marrying a restless woman who disrupted the entire family. I have no interest in their disputes. Soon, it was my birthday again. The third prince came especially to celebrate my birthday. He stayed until very late. When he left, I saw him outside the door. I saw Xiet Siqing. Xiet Siqing did not come alone. He brought Xiezian and Xielin with him. Xiezian and Xielin lowered their heads, not daring to look at me. Xiet Siqing, however, was full of affection. Mingshuang, I was wrong before. I'll divorce Chen Wanjuan as soon as I go back. Can you give me another chance? An endless chill rose from the depths of my heart. I have never loathed him more than at this moment. Xiet Siqing. Chen Wanjuan is still carrying your child. By my count, she's due to give birth soon. Are you sure you want to divorce her? A look of disgust appeared on Xiet Siqing's face. The love she once had was now matched by an equal amount of hatred. That woman has caused nothing but turmoil in the household. What's wrong with me divorcing her? Besides, I'm not lacking in children. The children you gave me, Xiana and Lina, are both good kids. We have them, and that's enough for us. Looking at his face like that, I felt utterly disgusted. Not wanting to say another word to him, I turned and entered the mansion. The moment the gate closed, I heard someone shouting at him from afar, "Lord Xie, your wife is about to give birth." I suddenly felt a sense of irony. Back when I was giving birth to our two children, Chen Wanjuan caught a cold. Xiet Siqing abandoned me during childbirth to go see her. At that moment, I felt as if a giant hand had clenched my heart. And the pain was beyond compare. Now that she has given birth, Xiet Siqing has come to my place again to celebrate my birthday. The wheel of fortune turns. Chen Wanjuan, oh Chen Wanjuan, did you feel the humiliation and pain back then? Chen Wanjuan gave Xiet Siqing another son. That day when Xiet Siqing said he would divorce her, it was just talk. His affair with Chen Wanjuan was known to everyone. For the sake of his reputation, he wouldn't divorce his wife. If I agree to reconcile with him, he would take the risk and give it a try. But now that Chen Wanjuan has given birth to his son, he absolutely would not. The two of them are destined to be locked together. It's just that their lives have become even more difficult. Since being demoted, Xie Ziqing's salary has become even more meager. Selling the house did indeed bring in a considerable amount of silver. However, Xie Ziqing was still unwilling to accept his fate and wanted to regain the emperor's favor. So he used a large portion of the money for social connections and networking. The remaining amount had to be spent frugally on medicine for his mother Xie, jewelry for Chen Wanjuan, and daily expenses for food, clothing, and other necessities. Poverty makes it hard for a couple to achieve anything. Even the deepest affection is exhausted by these repeated arguments. I occasionally see Chen Wanjuan at banquets. At that time, I was treated as an honored guest. While she could only stay in the most inconspicuous corner, due to having given birth and not receiving proper care, her face looked haggard and her figure had become plump. She no longer had that cool, scholarly aura she once possessed. She wisely refrained from seeking attention in front of me. I didn't go out of my way to make things difficult for her either. It's not that I am broad-minded, but in my view, they are grinding away day and night in the passage of time, while I live a life 1,000 times better than theirs. This torments them more than killing them outright. Because an emotion called regret will gnaw at their hearts day after day. That's enough. Winter passed and spring arrived, and the third prince grew another year older. The new grand tutor said he should read more books. So after visiting the shops that day, I specifically took him to the bookstore. The result was that I encountered Xiezian inside. Our eyes met, and both he and I were somewhat surprised. Mother, third prince. Xiezian was the first to step forward and bow to us. His gaze at the third prince carried a hint of envy. He has changed a lot. He has become more reserved and quiet. He has also lost a lot of weight. Looking closely, he is still wearing last year's old clothes. And the cuffs are already too short, I sighed. The Xie family has encountered another incident recently. Because Xie Ziqing was reported for bribery, he was once again demoted by the emperor. Everyone knows it's impossible for him to be trusted with important duties again. The Xie family became even more chaotic. I know that both Xiezian and Xie Lin are in somewhat awkward situations now. Because Chen Wanjuan has her own son now, they were previously used by Chen Wanjuan as tools to compete for favor. But now they are completely useless. Instead, they seem like an eyesore in her view. In the inner residence, the stepmother's subtle mistreatment is silent and invisible. They have clearly suffered a great deal of grievances these days. After thinking for a moment, I took out a few silver notes from my robe and placed them in his hand. Spend it with your sister. Xiezian's tears immediately fell. Seeing this, I felt a pang of heartache. Children are different from adults. They don't understand many principles. When children make mistakes, it's often because adults haven't taught them properly. But when they're willing to change, I don't mind giving them another chance. Mother, I'm sorry.